Okay, I gotta talk about this book and I gotta talk about it right now. So last night I finished The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I know how overdue I am for this. Like, it's absurd how overdue I am for this. But honestly, it's not like I've been terribly uncultured with the Taylor Jenkins Reid wave. Like, I've read Daisy Jones, I've read Malibu Rising, but I cannot believe how long it has taken me to read this, and especially now since I've finished it. So I read this book in physical form, but I mostly read the audiobook. And honestly, it was a lovely reading experience when it was physical form, but the audiobook for this was fantastic. It was just like an incredible audiobook that was just so engaging and easy to listen to. And as someone who doesn't have the best attention span in the world, it was just, I was able to really start to fly through this book once I started listening to the audiobook. And honestly, if I were to recommend this book to anyone, I would recommend them to read the audiobook on Spotify because it was excellent. Like, whoever was voicing the characters, just wow. But I'm sitting here and I'm journaling some thoughts about Evelyn Hugo, and I kind of just want to talk about some of them, and we'll see if I post this, but I might consider posting it because I feel like this is a very, very popular book, and I have been reading this book. I started this book in spring of 2024. That was when I first started reading this, and I know you're probably like, what the heck? That's like a full year ago. And I'm like, you're totally right. It's a full year ago. I started reading this when I was at my old college, and I vividly remember like really liking it and getting very interested in it. But again, it's just like that reading difficulty that I've been having where it's like, it's impossible for me to finish a book. It's impossible for me to feel like I am not too busy to actually sit down and read, because that's genuinely what life feels like all the time now. But I definitely found my way back to her because I was going to Los Angeles and I was like, how the hell am I not going to bring The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo with me in my 5-month stay at Los Angeles? I was like, this is the perfect book to bring while I'm there. And that's exactly what I did. And I literally picked up from exactly where I left off, which was like 60 pages in. And I just kept reading it at school when I was staying there. And I was still able to be engaged with it as soon as it started up again. Like, I remember everything that happened. I remembered the trauma with her father. I remembered her first husband. I remembered what she did to get to Hollywood. So I had the vision in my head, and then I just kept reading it, and then I started listening to the audiobook, and I finished the audiobook like 2 nights ago, I think. Yeah. And I was freaking blown away by it. Especially like the final line. The final line of this book is one of the most memorable final lines in any book I've ever read before. And that could have just been because I actually think that Evelyn Hugo is actually the first audiobook I've ever finished. I think something that people also don't realize is that this is one of the gayest fucking books out there. Like this, and it's like, you would not think it is. You would think it's the most heterosexual, you know what I mean? Like, you would think it's like, I don't know, I know a lot of people on booktube had spoken about the queer elements of this story, but this book is really like, this book has excellent queer representation and just storytelling when it comes to queer people. And there's so much I can like get into with that, even there. But there's also an entire commentary in this book. There is an entire commentary, and it's arguably, to me, it's arguably the most important part of the book. I genuinely think that the most important part of the book, Evelyn Hugo, the most important part of this book is something that nobody would really expect when reading it initially. And that's kind of the brilliance of it. I don't want to be mysterious with how I'm talking about it, but I also do want to be mysterious at the same time. But The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is like mainly a commentary on race. And I don't want to tell anyone any reason why that is, and just, but I would argue that the commentary on race is what makes the book, like, at the end of the day. I think that when white authors, like, I haven't read enough books to know if, you know, like, white authors dealing with like black stories and black trauma and like systemic racism in our country and like writing about it. That's what at the end of the day made me give this book a 5 stars, because I feel like that was a really fucking brave thing to include in this book. Taylor Jenkins Reid could have easily just made this book like a super surface level. Honestly, Taylor Jenkins Reid had an incredible sort of foundation for this book and like just the structure of it, because the whole idea of the seven husbands is not necessarily outlandish. Like, there's plenty, I'm sure, of people in society, famous people, who have had a lot of different marriages and such, or a lot of different relationships, right? Like, I'm sure we can think of a lot of some of the biggest celebrities that we have out there that are just known for being in a lot of romantic relationships. So this is actually so funny because I know a lot of people like kind of allude to, I don't even, okay, so we know Taylor Swift is like a straight woman. Like, we know this about her, and I believe that we don't know what to believe about these people. You know what I mean? We never know what goes on behind closed doors, and especially with famous people, like, you have no idea what is truly going on in their real lives, you know? You have no idea how much is being manipulated for the public eye. Like, for what, like, I feel like we as the reader for The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, we aren't the public eye. We are literally getting an eyewitness account of this woman's journey in superstardom, and we're seeing it up close and personal. And there is something very like profound about that, because with other celebrities, we don't ever see them up close like this. So this is a very interesting sort of rumination on fame, the lies, the manipulation that comes with it, all the stuff that we as society, that we don't know, solely based on how these famous people present themselves to the public. As I'm filming this, okay. So something I really think of a lot with this book, and something that really stood out to me about this book, is how it makes a point of how famous people like aren't really good people at the end of the day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, famous people are not, like, let's just say, like, it isn't always sunshine and rainbows for somebody to get to, I want to word this in like the best way that I can. So Taylor Jenkins Reid makes a commentary in this book about how famous people are not good individuals, and a lot of their talent and a lot of their say intrigue lies in places that aren't really morally correct. I guess as someone who has just went to Los Angeles and who really wants to work in the film industry, well, not the film industry, I want to work in the industry in general. I want to be in Hollywood. So I want to be a screenwriter for TV, and I want to hopefully be an actor as well. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm out here doing some of the stuff that Evelyn's doing, but Evelyn is a very complex character. I think humans in general are complex, and once you add fame into the question, it just accelerates everything way more. And you start to wonder what the line between complexity and being a good person is. Because I'm sure it gets gray as the years progress, as it did for Evelyn. And I want to work in this industry, and it's not like I don't see myself sometimes, like, especially with acting, like, when people act, they want to hide in a character. You know what I mean? They want to hide away. And what I'm trying to say is that sometimes I don't even think I'm a good freaking person. Like, I'm always so stuck in the past. I'm always so consumed by like past choices that were oftentimes the best I could do with what I had, just like Miss Evelyn Hugo. So I love that about this book, and I love that it doesn't shy away from that. And I am not saying that I would do some of what Evelyn does. I think it's just really, really excellent themes, and all just tied together so well with such a nice flow to it. And that is largely due to the Seven Husbands gimmick, the whole gimmick that the book is an eyewitness account from Evelyn herself as an older woman in her 70s, and Monique, the author of her biography. And we're literally witnessing an author get research to write a biography on this woman. And that's another very, very deep thing too, because it's like we're experiencing it, but we don't get to actually experience the book that Monique writes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we will never know what that book looks like, but this was the story that we had the privilege to be told to us. Like, it's a fucking deep book. Like, it really is. And then, sure, there's all this cool stuff with the formats and the construction, but then there's like the actual depth in there too with the characters. Like, Evelyn is such a complex character. Like, the stuff that she faces with her sexuality is so, it feels like so much care is actually put into it. And like, it's just such an interesting perspective too, because I think a lot of times, like, we as queer people are always either told to like be our most true selves and to shine and to come out to the world and show everyone who we really are, or like the complete opposite. And especially during the time period that Evelyn grew up in, like, she didn't have a choice to make. And it's just as somebody who always experiences queer stories that are set in the modern age, like seeing one in this level of detail, well, reading one with this level of detail is just oddly such a different experience, because you're seeing what it's like when, rather than like a nice coming out story, which is what a lot of YA books are, like Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda is one of my favorite books of all time, and it's very much advocating like being out and like being open. And this book is 100% advocating the same thing, but we are having to see Evelyn Hugo like survive a world where queer people still aren't normalized, still aren't respected. A time when queer people are demonized. So with that invites a lot of room for Taylor Jenkins Reid to play in these environments and create these insanely complex relationship dynamics. Okay, so I'm just gonna be wrapping up my thoughts. I wanted to talk a little bit about the characters too, but I'm taking way too long to finish this book talk, so I am just gonna try to move a little quicker with these segments. Okay, so in the next few segments, I'm gonna be talking about the book with mild spoilers. So if you haven't read the book yet, I would click away if you would really like to be surprised and you're one of those people that doesn't care about spoilers. But if you're interested in what I have to say, then stick around. So I really loved Celia's character because she was definitely one of the nicer people that didn't want to do what Evelyn did and didn't want to go through life hiding who she truly was. And she was just, she had her own problems as a character too, though, because she wanted something that was not possible for the time period, and she put unrealistic expectations onto Evelyn's character. And that was a genuinely complex dynamic between both of them. And it eventually ends up with Celia also learning the importance of protecting her sexuality from the public. I mean, this kind of, I guess, spoils stuff about the book, but there's genuinely so much more surprises to be had, and I need to kind of go character by character. Also, if you hear any noises in the back, that's just my dog, so ignore that. And yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Celia. In terms of Harry, I also loved him, and I just really loved seeing these four people like put on this big facade so they could just live their best gay life. Like, I literally thought that was just, that point in the book is a really another high point of the book, when it's just Evelyn and Celia and Harry, and I'm forgetting the name of that character, but it's the football star that he's secretly engaged to, or is secretly his partner. But yeah, that part of the book is another like high point where you're reading it, you're like, wow, I'm experiencing something really special here. But with Harry's character, it's heartbreaking. It's really, really sad, and it's just, in terms of his lovers, it was just unfortunate, the stuff that Harry had to endure with that. And he's such a good friend to Evelyn. Like, those two are, again, like, so loyal to one another. And just really, like, ride or die. And it's very powerful how Evelyn and Harry, like, mirror each other in a lot of ways. And especially when you get closer to the end of the book and Evelyn starts to, you start to understand more of Evelyn's fate as a character and like where she's going, like what her story is really trying to say at the end of the day, and just how much Harry's life and experiences plays a role in that, a big role in that, because they were so close to each other. Okay, I just realized that I haven't even discussed Monique. So Monique's character, like I said before, is the one who's writing Evelyn's autobiography and is hearing all of the tea coming from Evelyn, right? So you would think that Monique would kind of turn into this sort of stand-in plot device kind of thing, because on a surface level, that is kind of what she is. But of course, there's a reason that she is included and that she plays a role in this and that she's telling this story. And it's honestly better that no one knows anything about that or why that is or what happens. It is just, again, it's spectacular. And I love that Taylor Jenkins Reid made her a Black woman, because it invites the actual truth sometimes of society and how fucked up society is, and just the systemic racism that is just prevalent in society. And that, mind you, would certainly be present in the industry. Monique was great. I really loved how she was using this whole experience to figure out her own problems within her marriage, which is still like up in the air. Okay, so I 100% think that this book is worth all the hype it gets. And I just totally see why everyone raves about it, and I'm so glad that I finally read it. Any sort of place that I thought it was going, it surprised me. And I know you probably think that I should talk about the husbands, but I personally don't feel like it's necessary, and that is just a personal choice. So please ignore that water jug in the segment. But I loved this story, and I absolutely loved reading it in Los Angeles, because it just really felt like all the environments of that story I was experiencing and seeing, and that was just so special. And I'm so glad that I took my time with it too. I'm so glad that I started it when I did, because I low-key had started it when Evelyn was at that place, when she hadn't gone to Hollywood yet. So it just, the more that I reflect on it, the more incredible I find it. And I don't want to ramble. So that's really all of my thoughts on the book. And I would totally love to interact with anyone's comments who's also read it and who has a thought about anything that I said. I will totally respond, because I just would love to talk about this book as much as I could. And I loved it. And it was an especially great read for the end of Pride Month too. I'm finishing in this in early July, but that's my thoughts on Evelyn Hugo, and that's my book talk, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. And I hope to be much more consistent with these videos, and yeah, stick around. Have a good one. Wishing you well. Bye. Mwah.